About, I would say 2 weeks ago. Well, not 2 weeks ago. It's really recently, last week, as recent as last week, I was going through a period of grief. And I took that time out, and the knowledgeable word for that week, or for the week was grief. And I really just took the time out to do a lot of reflection. And it energized me a bit because I was researching a bit on grief, and it really took me down an interesting place, I would say, an interesting place because I went into grief in a from a scientific perspective, and I learned a lot there. And one of the things I realized that we can use grief for a lot of things as well. We can use grief, which is quite interesting. And just so we know, whether it's a loved one, relative, sibling, parents, whether it's animals, some people have pets that's really close to them, and some people have pets who are like companions to them. So either way, a lost, it takes you through a period of grief. So I think it's very important that we acknowledge that. And let's just say, for example, if you miss someone, you haven't seen them for a long time, and you're longing for them, and you're trying to visualize something about them, and you're trying to think about the last time you have spoken to them, or even if you had a pet and you haven't seen a pet, but you're trying to visualize a connection. In a sense, that's grief. It's one of the things I've learned, and it really gave me a different perspective. And one of the things I do is, since my mom's passing, is I visualize sometimes things that we've done and periods of time that we've had a conversation, and sometimes it makes me laugh, smile, and sometimes it still makes me cry. So every year I cry. Yeah, I have this period of time I cry, but it's a specific period of time is not there anymore where I just cry. It just could happen anytime. No, I'm not going to cry today. I don't think so. But last week I cried, and sometimes I just cried because of different memories. And what I think it's a part of it are hormonal, yeah, hormonal, from the science side of things. Depending on how you look into grief, is that it can trigger different hormones, and it could trigger different aspects. And some people, they're able to produce a bit more of this particular hormones that's connected to how you feel and so forth. But one of the interesting thing that I found in my research about grief is that you can use grief to propel you, to motivate you. And I kind of connect it to some things, some memories of my own mom as well. Um, I think you talk about grief. We spoke about grief recently, and you mentioned something about grief. You want to share anything at this stage about grief? And
When it comes to grief, I always imagine that it's like a deep emotional turmoil, and then yes, like you said, like missing the person, and like you never get back this person. Um, However, it also makes me reflect on time, like how precious time is, and how important how I spend time with the loved ones, and then appreciate the present moment we have.
and I think during that reflection, like you mentioned, one of the things I've reflected on is that we behave as though we have all this time sometime. We really don't have all this time. This is a passage. We spoke in the past about passage of time. We are going through a passage of time, right? And how we use our time is really important because this passage or period of time, it's just not coming back, right? It's just going past us. And although, life is a cycle, we still cannot get the same experience. However, there are lessons here to be learned. And one of the things I realized too is that if we don't learn those lessons, but we've been exposed to them, whether it's through reflection or through or passage of time, is that they tend to come up. And I think this is one of the things that happens when people say, oh yeah, they spoke to someone on their bedside and they had these regrets and stuff. I really haven't had any, I can't remember my mom sharing any regrets with me, but one of the things she shared with me is some of her last words. During that, from that time, it really hits me because the last time my mom and I had a conversation, a decent enough conversation, or maybe a laugh, is her last words or her warning about her death came there. She was telling me, hey, to she was shared a song with me, and she was telling me about forgiveness and so, stuff like that. And I didn't get it immediately, and then I couldn't get a hold of her after that. I was like, why is she telling me these things? Not knowing that, hey, something was happening. She was feeling something she was going to experience. But when I reflect on that, I really give thanks to the fact that when the Knowledge Cube book was launched, I remember my mom was very ill. And I said to her, look, hey, I'm almost finished my book. You need to hang on. And she's like, she smiled and we laugh about it. And that's one of the things. Like when I look at my mom and she had I see she holding copies of her book and so forth. I just think how it was so amazing that she got well again and she got, we got to celebrate her having a copy of a Knowledge Cube concept in her hand and we talk about it. And she always pushed me to work with young people. And I really didn't like it too much sometimes because I wanted to work more with family settings, with moms and stuff. And she said, you can do both. And she said, you need to teach the young people. Like I'm getting older, but I still need to teach the young people. And it's something I did this year is to really revamp the Knowledge Cube a little bit, get some things happen with the Knowledge Cube and get it up and running as well. So the Knowledge Cube company is live, and one of the things that's it's focused on heavily is helping young people as well. It doesn't take away from the fact that do work with family setting that has a tween and a teen, but there's an impact coaching session. I think the 28-day coaching session for young people in there as well. And with that said, I just think that this year's experience of grief for me has been one where I just decided to not ignore the stuff that my mom was saying to me years ago, but it's to really embrace it this time because I don't believe that I should hang on to someone's who's passed or who gone on, hang on to their goal and what they think that is best for me, whether it's my parents or anyone else. It's I know what's best for me and they can guide me, but I can't hang on to them and try to live their legacy. And very often you have parents, you have guardians, you have mentors. Sometimes they come into your life and they want to tell you, even coaches, sometimes we come into people's lives and we want to tell them how to do things because there's a missing aspect of our life that we're trying to get them. And we have to be mindful of that in coaching, that when we're coaching someone to use their ability and to explore their skill set and to enhance that skill set, but focusing on what they want to do. So, yes, I struggle with grief a bit because there was this whole idea of my mom wanted me to do stuff, and maybe it's just stubborn old Andrew because she called me stubborn for 15 years, and I learned it from her anyway because she was stubborn. But I know that I was able to this year to really look into the aspect of where she was telling me to look at and what to do and said, okay, how does this serve me? How do I connect with it? I have to do it for me. And one of the things I realized is that I actually helped put my mom's legacy out there when in the book Aspire, as my grandma would say, because a lot of things I really validated with my mom. And we laugh about some of the stuff and so forth. A lot of it I learned from her. So I already done that. So yes, so sometimes grief, we can place a hold on grief in the sense where we can visualize something around that grief and that period of grief, and we can help use that to propel us in such a way where you use the idea of longing for something, and we can set a goal just like we have goals and aspirations, we could set that sense of longing. We could put that there, and that's very much a similar experience that we have with grief. And yes, I will cry again throughout the year, and I'll cry next year. But I think for me, one of the things I've shared with clients and with others is that grief doesn't really go away. We just find different ways, maybe better ways to deal with it. Yeah. You have anything you want to add there? I know it's a
Yeah,
bit.
just reminded me a couple of years ago, I lost my grandma, and then she was like my mom,
Mhm.
and then she didn't leave a legacy, but she always told me, "Oh, never get married." So I never forget that she kept telling me,
But you never got married, so
"Not yet."
not yet. So yeah, so sometimes we I think sometimes that we yeah, there's something around it and something there she's speaking to you about. And of course, whether it is to pay attention to it, pay attention to what you're doing around marriage or so on. But there's some other thing in the message, sometimes the message is not all black and white right there. There's something in